minute. Veronica's rolling in any second.
Yes.
So we are excited.
And it's her birthday.
And it's her birthday. So yes, it is June
30th.
I'm like, okay, hold on, let me make sure I've got the right date. Is that muted? Yes, it's June 30th. And she's coming in a minute. So
yeah.
We will spare you
I'm
from
a seat
singing
filler.
happy birthday to her. You're a great seat filler.
Thanks.
Tracy's a seat filler, so that's not bad. So we're going to be studying Tracy and I, and then Veronica and I, or we'll just keep Tracy. 1 Corinthians 11, which is some funky stuff. It's just some funky stuff. We're going to talk about like head coverings and all that stuff for the ladies. And what is Paul talking about in 1 Corinthians chapter 11? And then we're going to talk about the Lord's Supper. And so that's kind of interesting because we know that Paul, the apostle, was not at the Lord's Supper. But he has some specific revelations from the Lord. And so he wants to talk about it. So we will let him. Is anybody with us today? If you're with us, just put a... Oh, Jen says, hello, Tracy.
Hi, Jen. Hello.
Here we go. Hello, Miss Jen. she's raising her hand. There we go. So, yes, we've got Miss Tracy. She's a in demand fill-in.
I'm so high in demand.
She's high in demand. So, sorry, I keep touching the table with my knees, and then I swing the whole. I see like
Thanks,
all
Jen.
the lights swinging, so looking good. Woohoo! I am burnt. You are not.
Because I wore a hat.
Yeah, we went to the beach with the kids today, and I'm crispy critter. I thought I put on enough
Spiff.
Yeah, makeup, but well, yeah, that too, SPF, but also makeup, but I don't know, I'm looking a little pink, so just. You don't have to look at the screen to study with us. You don't have to do that. Our lips might also not be in sync. Don't let that bum you out either, because that's just technology stuff. So don't you worry. So we are going to roll into 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and we're going to start reading. So
retinol makes you burn quicker.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Should have brought the hat. I had sunglasses on, but I actually have like a raccoon thing going on from the sunglasses. So we're gonna make it, right? We're gonna make it. All we have to do is just make it through this chapter. So, and then I can itch my face.
It itches already?
It's itchy, yeah. So. Not a good sign. Not a good sign. I remember when I was a kid, was sleeping with Noxzema or something. I think because it was like just cold. But
yeah.
Now I have like a whole bunch of wonderful like other products like to go with retinol. I have a whole bunch of other things I could put on my face to soothe. So I'll be jumping into a tub of that as soon as we're done. Oh, that's the air conditioner.
Yes.
She's like, what's that noise?
That noise scared me.
It's an air conditioner. All right. Well, do you want to read?
I was only supposed to be temporary until Veronica got here. You tricked me.
Absolutely. It's okay. You don't have to. It's all right. You want to just sit there and look pretty? Okay, she's going to sit there and look pretty, y'all.
I'm a seat filler.
Yeah, that's a whole job, right? So the Grammys, the Emmys, yeah, we need cute seat fillers. There you go.
There's Paul.
There's Paul.
Forgot we're live.
Oh, there you go. All right, that's okay. We can see out the side here.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go ahead and start reading.
You're supposed to call me out like that.
I know. I didn't. Oops.
Oops.
Your lips still aren't syncing.
They're not syncing.
Our lips aren't syncing. All right, so the key to that is just watching this Bible study like this, and then you can't tell. You just hear us, but you can't see my lips. You're welcome. So look away if it's an issue, and you can just listen to us like we're a podcast. How's that? We're just a podcast. People.
Yes.
We're just a podcast. So let's go ahead and start in chapter 11. We're going to start on public worship and some very interesting ideas that Paul's going to roll out. Just want to remind you of one thing. Corinthians, this letter that Paul wrote to the people in Corinth, right? We know that Corinth was like a hotbed of sin. It was really a crazy place. And so the early church there had a lot of questions. And they had a lot of questions because they didn't know how to handle things. And so a lot of things that we've already covered are questions that they sent to Paul, and they said, we don't know what to do about this stuff. And so Paul said, oh, well, you need to do this, but not this. And this is important, but not this. And so here we go into some things here about women and men and how women should look and when they're worshiping. This is pretty specific, though, to Corinth. So just to remind you, there was a temple a temple of Aphrodite in the city of Corinth. And so this was where people did their worship. This is not worship to Jesus Christ. This is pagan worship to the goddess, right? Little g, goddess of Aphrodite. So inside this temple were 1,000 Vestal virgins. They weren't virgins, though. They were prostitutes. And so part of your worship, even part of men's worship, would be to go to this temple of Aphrodite and perform ridiculous things with these prostitutes. And that would be part of their worship to the goddess Aphrodite, because she was a goddess of love and sensuality, and that's what they were worshiping. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So the church in Corinth had a lot of problems, and they had problems with women because they had women, quite a few of them, who were prostitutes, and what they looked like and their demeanor. And so women could, they could be kind of mixed up with those women. So Paul just needed to talk a little bit about husband and wife relationships, which we've already covered some. We'll cover some more, but also about head coverings for women, and I'm sure you've probably heard. We've had some churches rent from our church before, where the women, the women would sit on one side and the men would sit on the other, and the women would all have head coverings, and so. It is what it is. They were taking these things very literally, and so good for them. All right, but there was also a huge problem going on in Corinth. Just wanted to remind you of that. Wanted to remind me of that. Wanted to remind Tracy of that, so that when we kind of talk about these things, it makes a little more sense. Let's go to 11, verse 1. 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1. And it says, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Powerful right there. Verse 2. I praise you for remembering me in everything, and for holding to the teachings just as I passed them on to you. Now I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and that dishonors her head. Dishonors her head. It is just as though her head was shaved. And so that is some very interesting comments. We've had some, what did that say? Did it say it was
interrupted? It
said that our feed is interrupted. So if you're seeing some interruption, you can just kind of put that in the comments. That's what I'm trying to think. Put it in the comments if our feed is being disrupted, so that way we know what's going on. I don't know that I didn't. Did you touch anything?
I didn't move.
Okay. I'm trying not to move.
Nope.
I'm trying not to move. So yeah.
But it's synced. Woohoo!
Well, that's what it was for. Maybe God's fixing it for us, or somebody, or something. All right. Well, thank you, Paul. So let me just read a few more verses. Verse 6. If a woman does not cover her head, she should have her hair cut off. And if it is a disgrace for a woman to have her hair cut off or shaved off, she should cover her head. A man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but the woman is the glory of man. For man did not come from woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. For this reason, and because of the angels, the women ought to have a sign of authority on her head. Sorry. So this is our lips are matching up now. Woohoo! All right, then you can.
It's the new gal with you. Hey. I'm a
Hey.
seat filler. Veronica's on her way.
Veronica's on her way, and I didn't want to be by myself. It's lonely.
It was not even last minute. It was last second.
No way. Look at this girl. She's been doing her hair for hours. And her makeup.
Just lips.
Oh, she's always this pretty.
No.
That's what it is. She's
Nope.
always this pretty.
No.
Yes. Well, this is good. Thank you, Gay. I'm glad that you're here. Because we're talking about some hard stuff. We're talking about women covering their heads, men not covering their heads, submission. It's pretty tough. Let me break a few things down to you. Submission is important in every business, in every venture, in every relationship. We often need to be submissive to other people to get things done. If there were two heads to everything, there are two heads to one body, it's really tough to figure out where to go because they're both probably looking in different directions at different times. There needs to be a leader, and that's really powerful. That it's powerful and it's also biblical. So, hey, look, here's Veronica. Veronica's here.
Yay! Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
No, this is your seat.
Oh no, you're doing great.
Oh no! I'm good.
Look at her. She's
Bye.
like, howdy. Howdy.
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
She did great.
She did great.
Beautiful up here. and,
I know.
like,
Look how cute you look. Look, you got a new necklace.
Thanks. There's room for you.
I'm
here.
okay. I'm good. Enjoy.
Chicken little.
That's me.
Let her know, ladies and gentlemen, how well she did and how great she
She did
looked,
great.
and
She did great. She's so cute.
No, you guys are the best. See you later.
All right.
see you in a bit.
So Jen is asking. Oh, there you go. Jen says happy
Oh,
birthday,
thanks.
Veronica.
Thank you.
Veronica, for her birthday, is teaching 1 Corinthians 11 to y'all. That is a pretty big. That's a pretty big deal because I don't know if I would. No, I would. Maybe. Yeah. So anyway, God bless you. Happy birthday, Veronica. We're super glad you're here on your birthday. Yay. So Jen had said, oh, there we go. We're getting lots of comments. We love that. Please, it helps us to feel like we're not like by our lonesome up here
Right.
talking to the wall or to this camera. And so Jen had asked, was the covering of the hair to not incite lust? Yes, that's definitely part of the issue. Remember, we talked about there are 1,000 Vestal virgins in the temple of Aphrodite, and we did not want to mix up the behavior that they were exhibiting, right? Some heads shaved, not being their hair not being covered, and remember, this is a different culture, it's a different time, but they didn't want to mix up these two ladies. They didn't want to mix up these behaviors. I'm absolutely sure of that, and so it was important to just even be respectful. Gay said the love on another's are more than just man and wife in context. Love on another's. I think are you talking about, let's see what verse that is. Sorry, I can't think that fast on my feet. Actually, I'm not on my feet, on my fanny. But I think we're talking about, even sure what we're talking about. Anyway, absolutely, it is bigger than it's always more than just a relationship. It's also our relationship with Jesus Christ. Whenever we're looking at healthy relationships, we can apply this to a lot of different places. And so, I was talking a little bit about submission, how it is always easiest if there is kind of like one main person and people can follow. But that doesn't mean that we're not equals, right? And so let me read something that I found. God calls for submission among equals. He didn't make the man superior. He made the way for a man and woman to work together. Jesus Christ, although equal with God the Father, submitted to him to carry out the plan for salvation. Likewise, although equal to men under God, the wife should submit to her husband for the sake of their marriage and their family. Submission between equals is submission by choice, not by force. Submission between equals is submission by choice, not by force. We serve God in these relationships by willingly submitting to others in our church, to our spouses, and even to our government leaders. So we're talking a lot about just like a proper relationship behavior. Plus, like I said before, the Corinthians, like they wrote questions to Paul, and so Paul is answering their questions about this behavior, and that was also though specific to them. So, all right, you got more. Oh, sorry. Oh, one another, not on another. Thank you, Gay. I thought I was missing something entirely. Just agreeing with you about submission. Yeah.
And she says, I bet Tracy left because she didn't want to be the object lesson and get her hair cut off.
Amen. We got any scissors around here?
No.
Ting, ting,
Who's
ting,
going
ting.
first?
You might as well have your head shaved like this. No. There we go. So, there's some interesting ideas here, but I think in talking about like hair coverings and all that stuff, we're going to talk about like length of hair, a lot of stuff about hair. It's kind of funny because remember how God says that that he knows every hair, how many hairs you have on your head. Like that's not just like for your hairdresser to know, like that's for God to know. And I think he cares a lot about everything. Clearly he's got something to say even about men. So do you want to read like starting in verse 11? I think that's where we left off.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Like 11 down to 16.
Yes. It says, however, in the Lord, neither is woman independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. As the woman originates from the man, so also the man has his birth through the woman. And all things originate from God. Judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? Does not even nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a dishonor to him? But if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her. For her hair is given to her for a covering. But if one is inclined to be contentious, we have no other practice, nor have the churches of God.
So, another point here that Paul's making is that we need to be honorable, and we need to behave in ways that are honorable in our culture. And so a little bit of backstory is that some cultures men have long hair, and that is culturally acceptable, and that is very masculine. But in Corinth, the historians have said that in Corinth it was a sign of a male prostitute to have long hair. And so again, it's like not not being mixed up with people, not being mistaken for people that were definitely, not the best and brightest of the city. And so it says women with short hair could also be labeled prostitutes, right, with their heads uncovered and shorter hair or shaved hair. And so that's why he's saying Christian women should keep their hair long. Let's not confuse them, right? Let's show them that we are separate, that we are set apart from the culture that way. And so it says Christian women, or if short hair on a woman was a sign of a prostitute, then a Christian woman with short hair would find it would be hard to be a believable witness for Jesus Christ, right? It could be hard. So Paul wasn't saying that we should adopt all the practices of our culture. He was, but that we should avoid appearances or behavior that detract from our ultimate goal of being believable witnesses for Jesus Christ while demonstrating our Christian faith. So, it's like, well, if you've been called by God to be a pastor, or to, he says in verse 5, he said, every woman who prays or prophesies, this is in public. So Paul's not saying women can't speak. He's saying when they pray, when they prophesy, preach in public, they need to be, you want to equate them with somebody who has a good witness. So say that, that someone we know has been called to be a missionary, and she needs some money to go on missions, and so she decides that she is going to pose naked in a adult magazine. Like, okay, well, why would you do that, right?
Yeah.
Why would you, like, of course some people think that that's fine. Of course some people do that. But that's ridiculous for Christians who are, our Christian witness is precious to us.
Right.
Why would you do that? Why would you get mixed up in that? So this is some very specific stuff for some very specific behavior. But I think it just kind of points to the fact that we shouldn't get mixed up with stuff that just erodes our Christian witness. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe don't. I don't know. Don't be a bouncer in a bar if you're trying, unless you're trying to, I don't know, win people to the Lord in line. I'm not sure. It's hard. And there's a lot of great people out there that do a lot of great things, but I don't know, what would somebody say if you really wanted to lead them to Christ? It would be strange. Jen says the cultural context makes these verses make much more sense. Yes, there's a little bit behind these verses, but again, but we also got to talk about some great relationship regulations, or some things that make relationships really solid, and that is this idea of mutual submission among equal people. Men and women are equal people, and so, but you can't always, not everybody can make the decision all the time. It makes things hard. So tough stuff. Sorry, that's there's a lot of different, these verses can go wrong pretty quickly.
Yeah, you really can.
They go wrong pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden we all have to wear hats in church. And
That's the reason why Tracy was wearing her hat today.
thank you, Tracy, for obviously giving us the proper thing for Corinth. 2,000 years ago, you would have been all the rage. So there we go. Let's see. I don't know. Anything else? Anything else on that? You guys have anything else on that? We would love to hear your comments. And if you have anything of well, wise or not wise, feel free to throw it out.
Mhm.
We would love to read it. And Pastor Gay, sorry I can't read, but make sure you tell us anything else that you kind of feel like Pastor Gay has obviously a very special take on this as well. So there you go. You explained it well.
There you go.
She says, move on.
Okay,
Move on.
moving on.
Moving on. Let's go to the Lord's Supper because everybody loves to eat. All right. Verse 17, I think.
Yes. Yes. Let's see, 17. But in giving this instruction, I do not praise you, because you come together not for the better, but for the worse. For in the first place, when you come together as a church, I hear that divisions exist among you, and in part I believe it. For there must also be factions among you, so that those who are approved may become evident among you. Therefore, when you meet together, it is not to eat the Lord's Supper. For in your eating, each one takes his own supper first, and one is hungry and another is drunk. What? Do you not have houses in which to eat and drink, or do you despise the church of God and shame those who have nothing? What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you? In this I will not praise you.
Lovely. That certainly not. I will not praise you. So this also requires a little bit of backstory because it's important to know how the church in Corinth used to celebrate communion. So it used to be that they would have a great feast, like a big old meal, and then at the end they would celebrate communion, kind of like dessert a little bit. And so and it had, I can't remember what the name of it was. It's kind of like feast of like love, something like that, you know. And so it was a social gathering. It was literally food, like they were consuming food. It's like coming to like a church picnic kind of thing, and everybody brings their own. And so Paul is seeing some problems in this, and clearly, because he says in 21, for as you eat, each of you goes ahead without waiting for anybody else. One remains hungry and another gets drunk. So this wasn't like a real church meal. Everybody was just doing their own thing. They were eating their own food. It says that one remains hungry. They're not sharing. Sharing, it would be good, would like promote church unity. This is not a potluck. It's like they were bringing their own sack lunch.
Yeah.
And then it says that another gets drunk. So that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. So he's saying, you know, like I get it. You're coming together, you know, and you want to do the Lord's Supper, but they just got a little bit off. And maybe you can think of something in your own life where you started like a tradition, you know, and then you're kind of like, why are we doing it this way? You know,
Right.
why do some people open their Christmas presents on Christmas Eve? Some people open them Christmas morning. You know, it's I don't know that there's no right and wrong on that one, obviously, but it's the same sort of thing. Like this was a tradition, and they, you know, they just started rolling along like this,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, I guess it went off a cliff.
Yeah. And I think that happens a lot with traditions, right? Like where family come together and they all have different ideas. Maybe next year we should try this, and next thing you know, they're kind of going, like you said, off a cliff, and someone's bringing their own beer, and
Yeah, right.
you know,
What happened? Like, I thought we were doing none of this or none of that, or only this or only that, and all of a sudden, nobody's sharing. People are hungry. Other people are drunk. This is definitely not what the Lord had intended. You know, God did on that Passover night. God did, Jesus laid down the communion at a meal, at the Passover meal. And so yeah, I can maybe see the loose tie there, but again, it didn't seem to evoke reverence or like strong remembrance where you're like, oh, and it's like, oh, I ate too much chicken and I drank too much. Yeah, let's hurry up and take this fruit of the vine and this bread and like call it a night. Clearly, because these were in the evening too. So yeah, it just seemed like Paul needed to steer him and put up those bumpers a little bit, some rails, and say, this isn't where we really want to go. But do you want to read down some more? He's got more to say, Paul does.
In 23. For I received from the Lord that which I also delivered to you, that the Lord Jesus, in the night in which he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. In the same way, he took the cup also after supper, saying, This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it, and in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. Therefore, whoever eats the bread and drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the Lord. But a man must examine himself, and in doing so, he is to eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For he who eats and drinks judgment to himself, if he does not judge the body rightly. For this reason, many among you are weak and sick, and a number sleep. But if we judge ourselves rightly, we would not be judged. But when we are judged, we are disciplined by the Lord, so that we will not be condemned along with the world. So then, my brethren, when you come together to eat, wait for one another. If anyone is hungry, let him eat at home, so that you will not come together for judgment, and remaining matters will arrange when I come. Oh, the remaining matters I will arrange when I come.
There we go. He's like, I'll tell you more in a little bit. Hold on. So yeah, he's talking exactly about, like, in verse 23 down to verse 26. He is talking about here. He's re-explaining or reiterating what Jesus said. That's why they're in red in my version, because these are the words that Jesus said. This is my body, which is for you. Do it in remembrance of me. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. So he wanted, it seems like he wanted to just kind of cover that again. Maybe it just wanted to make sure they all knew like what this was all about. And obviously, there's some different ideas about the Eucharist, which basically means the elements. In this one, Paul calls it the cup in verse 25, and I don't know that that it is really called wine in any of our versions, and so or in any of the places that it's talked about in the Bible. And just kind of an interesting aside, it's so you serve like the simplest of elements here, right? It's like it's bread and fruit juice. It's the fruit of the vine. So it's super, super simple. It's not like a four-course meal. It's not like so complicated. It's super simple. And something that I had read a while back, and I thought that's a very interesting idea, is that it's unleavened bread. So if it's unleavened bread, why would it be wine? Because that's like leavened fruit, and so it's like we want to have unleavened fruit and unleavened fruit juice and unleavened bread. So I'm just not a big fan of wine being part of the Eucharist, and so I just thought I'd bring that up. It was an interesting thing that I read about. Clearly that's not in the verse right here, but he does call it the cup. He doesn't say what it is in it, other than, we know that it is fruit of the vine in other places, but the cup is representing Jesus's blood. So this is exactly what Jesus instituted on the night of the Passover, right? That he did. And so in the commentary, I don't know if you see it too, in verses 24 and 25, it talks a little bit about like the different ideas that people think about the Eucharist. Because remember that some people believe that the cup of the fruit of the vine and the bread actually become Christ's physical blood and body when you take them and when you're observing communion. And so others believe that bread and the fruit of the vine remain unchanged, but Christ is spiritually present with the bread and the juice. Still others believe that the bread and the wine are symbols of Christ's body and blood. Christians, they generally agree, right, that participating in this communion is important in the Christian faith. How you believe it to be, what you believe the elements to be. I don't know that they physically become something else.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
'Cause bread is bread. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think most Protestants believe that they're a symbol of Christ's body and Christ's blood.
Yeah. No,
it's okay. I think probably the more important thing is that we do it.
Right.
In remembrance of him. Not like at the back of a big old meal where some didn't have enough to drink or some had too much to drink, or some didn't have enough food and some had too much food, so
Right.
I think the idea is that we just take it and remember Jesus specifically. I don't know, maybe it's because of these scriptures here, that maybe Christianity took a turn, and that's kind of what we do today.
Right.
It's usually like a time of reverence. We don't like put a party with it. We we take it seriously. I'm going to say that. We take it seriously.
Yeah. And going back to what you said, about like the wine and why you think it's, just it's not wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think God would use like anything that's been fermented. Is that the word?
Yeah, fermented. Yeah.
Or high in volumes of alcohol, I guess. Because he knows that some of us have addictive personalities, I guess, or addiction. And some may become drunkards, some may be drunkards, and so why would he use that type of, I guess, drink, for us to remember him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or why we do this,
Seems a little strange.
Yeah.
Seems a little strange. I know that they didn't have refrigeration. We get that. But again, like they were using bread that was unleavened. And so that had, anyway, that is just our take on it. And
so what is your take on it? Let us know.
We would love to know. I know a lot of denominations, or a lot of different types of Christians, they have very specific, requirements for the communion. But again, sometimes we just have traditions and we don't know why. And we don't know why. We just do the things that our church just does. And maybe it's not wrong, but it's interesting, I think, sometimes to think it through. go, why do we do this again? Yeah. But the biggest thing, probably, bigger than like how you do it or when you do it or how much you do it or what you think the Eucharist elements become, is number 27. And that is a pretty big deal. And he says, whenever you do it, don't do it in an unworthy manner. Don't do it in an unworthy manner. And so that becomes kind of a big deal, because why would you, well, number one, why would you even do it unless you're just hungry, and stuff like that. But don't do it without
Did I mess you up?
a little
You
bit.
stalled right then.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Paul came in.
Where am I? Oh, hi. Woohoo! I'm here. Hey, hey, the lips are synced. Yay, we did it.
You did it.
Unplugged a wire. It was great.
Wow,
Okay.
good job. Are you looking for my car keys? They're in my purse, I believe.
I'm taking the. All right.
Got
Hey,
it.
get back with your study. You're not supposed to let them know I'm here.
We're almost done, dude.
Got
So,
it.
so hurry up. Okay. All right. We're almost done, right? Anyway, we need to take it seriously, and I guess because people weren't taking it seriously, that's why Paul really wanted to cover this and say, you need to do it. What does he say? He says you need to do it in a worthy manner. You need to examine yourself before you eat of the bread and drink of the cup. And if you don't do this and kind of recognize what you're doing, just, he's like, you can go home. If you're hungry, eat at home. That's not what this is for. This is special. And he says kind of some interesting judgment here. He says in verse 30, that is why many of you are weak and sick, and a number of you have fallen asleep. A number of you have died. So that is kind of some funky judgment going on. I'm praying that it is just specific to this time.
Yeah.
Specific to this time. Oh, sorry, I've missed some things. Hey, Rich.
Hi, Rich.
We are not talking about gravy, but it is good to see you. Always with the gravy. Jen, I think wine in those times may not be what we think as wine today. I think that's probably more along the lines. So it's not like they all had like a Chardonnay or a rosé or whatever. I don't know all the differences. I'm not a connoisseur in all that stuff, but yeah, I think it was, some serious fruit juice, and hopefully it didn't go bad. So anyway, but we're back to talking about just being very make sure you're doing this with like intent,
Okay.
thought, examination of your heart. And I think I don't know if your church does this, but I feel like our church does this, that we put this in together. Like, it's quiet. We kind of, pastor usually says a few words about the seriousness of this ritual, right? And how we are really to contemplate the cross, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I was actually reading this commentary here. It says, Jesus said, "Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me." How do we remember Christ in the Lord's Supper? By thinking about what he did and why he did it. If the Lord's Supper becomes just a ritual or a pious habit, it no longer remembers Christ, and it loses its significance. So it can lose significance very quickly, when we get caught up in all of that.
And you can see, if they were combining it with like a big meal, and in one where people were not unified, and they're just, it even kind of, it says it together in 33. So then, my brothers, when you come together to eat, wait for each other. And so that's kind of funny, because a lot of times we wait like we take these things together. And so it's, I don't know if that's exactly what it means, but that's kind of a fun ritual. We do it all together.
Right.
Jen says it is a whole ceremony in the Lutheran Church. We had communion the first Sunday of the month. Yeah, and some denominations have it every Sunday. Catholics, Church of Christ, they have it every Sunday. We have it 4 times a year. And so, but that's just a ritual for our church. And that was a ritual that was already instituted in our church, in this church, before we got here. So we just continued it. You know, I think whatever you're going to do, just be consistent, you know, so you're not like, well, you know, occasionally, you know, on a Tuesday, you know, it's like, okay, well, maybe we should lay out some plans. Also, so that we don't forget it. That can also happen. We can also forget. So,
and I'm glad we do it like 4 times a year, because when you do it every Sunday, it kind of becomes a little,
yes,
more like a habit, I guess, or what is it, a ritual too?
Yeah, it loses, I think, some of that specialness. And that's not to say, you know, that people who are doing it every Sunday are bad. It's just you might have to fight a little bit more to make it special, rather than like, all right, you know, let's pull out the food and pull out the drinks and here we go.
Well, I say that because for me, I work in a field where it's very repetitive, and it just kind of becomes like I'm, you know, cattle.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It's just like, all right, get going.
Next.
Kind of
Next. All right, let's
So-
get this done. Yeah. That he believed that, or he described Christians of the day. And he said that every day they would take communion in their homes every single day. And so it just became like, you know, brush your teeth and take your communion sort of thing.
Right.
And so, you know, so it doesn't say you have to do it every day. It doesn't say 4 times a year. It doesn't say anything. It just says when you do it in a worthy manner. Do it in remembrance of God's sacrifice. And then you'll be, you know, I don't know. You're going to read
It says
that?
we froze. Or which one?
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, it does say we froze.
And
I look
then, but
crazy.
before that, Jennifer says, as a kid, I didn't appreciate it. It made the service longer, so I wasn't happy about it. Yeah.
It's true. It's
Remember
true.
that.
Yeah, you froze. Oh, okay.
We froze.
We're frozen, and we're just going to keep talking, though, because we're basically done. So I think we can it's still recording, or we're still live somewhere.
Hopefully it catches up to us. And we're not
It's going to
frozen,
do that
like
thing where it's
weird.
like, yeah, and then we're, okay, well.
Still frozen for me. Oh.
Sorry, Jen.
Yeah.
Can you hear it? Can you hear us? Well, anyway, we just need to take, I don't know, we'll just finish this up. We just need to take the Lord's Supper with reverence and respect, and we shouldn't be like steeped in sin or steeped in hate. I believe, you know, like in the Catholic Church, you're not allowed to take communion
If you're not baptized.
if you're not baptized, or if like you're living like, I don't know, if you're like living with your it's good here. Oh, Tracy can hear us. There we go. Or good some places and not others. Sounds like our lives. But yeah, in the Catholic Church, I believe that you can't, like, I don't know, if you're living with a woman, or if you're, you know, or you're the town drunk, or whatever it is, like they keep you from taking communion. I don't know how they decide. There must be like the
no idea.
communion police. They're like, sit down. You're not taking communion today. Woo! Super glad. We basically, we don't do that here in this church. We allow people to police themselves. We will often remind them, like, don't do this. It, you know, it does say people were weak and sick and died because they were not taking this seriously. So we don't want that to happen. But in some in the Catholic Church, I know for sure they, I don't know if it has to do with confession or anyway. I don't know a lot about that church, and that's okay because I'm not in it. I should know more if I was in it. But we just want to make sure that we're being considerate. And it says to wait until everybody can do it together. That's kind of cute. I like 34. If anyone is hungry, you should eat at home, so that when you meet together, it may not result in judgment, being weak or sick or dead. So, yeah, now I'm a little nervous about taking communion. No, just kidding. It's all good. It's all good. So, yep, we just need to come and just be very intentional, I think is the point.
Yeah.
Be intentional. Lord's Supper is very special. So, okay, guys. Well, that is it. That is 1 Corinthians 11. And next week is some big stuff. Is spiritual gifts, and so that's kind of fun. And see how deep we can get into that. So that is it. So tomorrow night is Genesis chapter 7 at 7:00. I don't actually know what chapter it is, but they're in the 30s, and I would have to look up what I watched last. And
Mid-30s, I think.
Mid-30s. There you go. Sunday at 5 is our service, and it's 4th of July. So feel free to
Tune in before
fireworks for barbecue and fireworks. That's wherever right. You are, or stop on by if you're headed to the beach. Swing by our church at 8101 Slater in Huntington Beach. And then we go back to Tuesday, and next Tuesday night, we might be taking a break on next Tuesday night, just because we have some scheduling conflicts. But next Wednesday will be in 1 Corinthians 12, and then next Thursday back in Genesis. So just hold on tight. We're here to study the Bible. The Bible. So, all right. It is Veronica's birthday, so we need to get out of here and go and celebrate or something. So, but we're super excited. So Thank you for coming on your birthday.
Oh yeah, anytime. Thank you all for the birthday wishes. It was great.
Yeah, you have like a whole list of them. You guys are awesome. All right, well, we are out of here, and very grateful that you hung with us, even though we might be frozen and our lips don't match. But God is good. Just read 1 Corinthians 11. That would be our best bet. So.
Got it.